So, Bill, you've been talking for some weeks now about the Maoist period. Part 9 has come to an end. It's December. Mao Zedong is long past. You've come back from China and you've seen this new museum, what's called, I believe, the Guozha Boguan, the National Museum, is that right?
The National Museum. It used to be called the History Museum. It's right on Tiananmen Square, a magnificent structure. What original building has now been beautifully redone, was part of the 10 great projects of 1959, of the 10th anniversary of the People's Republic.
So I want to ask you a question about this that goes back to after Mao Zedong died and after Deng Xiaoping comes into power. There's a reevaluation of Mao Zedong.
Yes.
And they say, well, he was X% good and X% bad, right? Or X% correct and X%
That's right.
mistaken.
70-30.
70-30 was that.
But they also severely criticize his leadership in the Great Leap Forward, and particularly in the Cultural Revolution, really in the Cultural Revolution period, making serious errors of judgment, cult of personality, and so on. And given the role that Mao had played as the Lenin and the Stalin of the Communist Chinese Revolution, and as a demigod in Chinese domestic politics, and as the center of the party, a figure that no other member of the party leadership really ever dared oppose. It's actually a rather bold criticism that is made in 1981.
So now you've seen this National Museum. It had been closed for a good number of years.
Yes.
They were revising the exhibits. But a museum in some ways is a way in which, particularly a national museum set up by the government, is a way in which people, or the government, defining how it wants us to see history. So what did you learn when you went to the National Museum?
Well, it has, I had last seen it when it was the History Museum and really focused more on the political history of modern China. It has an extraordinary collection now called Gudai Zhongguo, Ancient China.
But ancient means for us up
Means
through the,
from Neolithic
into the 18th
until through the
19th
Qing.
century. Through the Qing dynasty.
So ancient China goes from Neolithic through the Qing, and anyone who has a chance to go to Beijing to visit this museum, that exhibit alone is worth it. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's also free.
Even
but
better.
Even better.
Like
But
our
it's-
course.
Like our course. Amazing. So it's a wonderful collection and exhibit of the growth of Chinese civilization over time. And it shows both the achievements and shortcomings of different dynastic periods, right up to the Qing, which it portrays, I should say, compared to the earlier version of the History Museum, in really quite positive tones, as a moment of great flourishing for the empire, broadly speaking, and for the Chinese people. That's one exhibit, and it's very interesting, and it's contradicted by another exhibit called Fuxing Zhilu, the road
path
of
restoration.
Of restoration,
Road of restoration.
which is a political history of the rise of the Chinese Communist Party. And there the Qing is not good, but bad, feudal, corrupt, and so on. Old Marxist terminology of a kind that would be present in any 1950s or 1960s textbook. And there the argument is that the only road to the nation's salvation is through the Chinese Communist Party. And so you see conflicting narratives in this great and extraordinary museum. Learners should go and evaluate for yourselves what you think.
Yeah, and you know, in many ways, it strikes me that story, right, of sort of a historical, educational story of the past, and the very strongly political story of more contemporary stuff, that tension is a fundamental tension in China today, but I think it's also been a tension in the past as well.
There have been moments in the history of the People's Republic in which it is, there have been scholars who have written really quite remarkably frank assessments of the 1950s and 60s and 70s. This is not one of those moments, at least if this exhibit
not for that museum.
is any guide.
But the part of its history that I know best, which is its pre-modern part, pre-19th century part, that seems to be done wonderfully.
It does.
And so we should all go and meet in Beijing and go take a view of the museum.
And if you want to go in the context of being immediately in post-Mao China, then of course you can also go and visit the mausoleum of Mao Zedong.
Right around the corner.
Right at the center of Tiananmen Square.
Good. Well, thank you for joining us in Part 9. We say once again that we hope that you will consider contributing to ChinaX and HarvardX We always appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you in part 10.